I'm crying, but laughing. Because again, I'm in a moment where I recognize the fucking beauty of everything. How fucking fortunate are we? And how simple the answer was all along. That unconditional love. It's such a beautiful fucking thing. Was the answer all along. That even in death, we have nothing to fear. Because we've already happened and will forever have happened. And just like how rivers flow, the water comes from the sky and falls down, and the water streams and interconnects and merges and diverges. All rivers taking their own path but made up of the same essence, water, and interconnected at the source, and eventually they all meet, flowing down, guided by gravity, down to the ocean, where someday they will be taken back up in the sky again, so that they may be born again, tell a new story, perhaps go on a different path. Even if there was no afterlife, even if there is no afterlife, even if there is no God, even if there is none of that, we are still here, and that is just as absurd and crazy and wild to have ever happened at all, regardless of the cause, because we are here, and we are experiencing it, and that's already the greatest gift. Even if it's given to us by no one, it is a gift. And it is wonderful. Because this is already heaven. We just don't see it, and we keep hurting ourselves and each other in our confusion and immaturity. But the truth is always there, waiting patiently for us to reach and grasp it, to mature and accept our duty to act out of virtue in unconditional love. That's something I wrote today as well. Well, yesterday, I guess, because now it's the 6th. Yesterday was the 5th. We went on the hike. But the last, 4 sentences were something I wrote when I looked at this image of this meadow that was off the trail, but we decided to go down into anyways, to go off the trail and make our own. There was this beautiful stream, and something my friend Alexis said right away was how magical it was. And that was a perfect word to describe it. It's interesting too, because I spoke of a meadow with the lone tree in my series. Well, of course the episode or movie is not made yet, but in the script I speak of how the main character Tetra goes out into a meadow universe is meant to be a direct, well, pretty much me in the story. Because a big part and point of the story is to kind of just give like a perspective of how it and what it's like to be me, as well as my message and what I think is, like just the messages of how everything is beautiful and everything is art, interconnected. To have comfort in the moment. No, unconditional love is the way. Now you have to find it through yourself and yourself alone. You must walk the path, even if someone told you all the answers. You still have to analyze it, and know it to be true through your own understanding, which can only be done 100% through your own searching. Because whatever anyone else tells you, even if they're the most trustworthy person ever, words are still all made up by us, and they're only approximations. They could be really good with words, but they still can only get 99%, 99.99999%, never 100%, because only the experience itself can describe itself fully, and that is something only you can seek, pursue, and make happen within yourself. Those epiphanies that will grant you true understanding. But yeah, it's 4:26 a.m. right now. It's the 6th of January, 2025. And I'm very grateful for all of it. So much so that I am crying and laughing and overwhelmed with bliss. How very fortunate are we? All of us. In everything. To be anything. At all. It's wonderful. I don't know if you can tell by the tone of my voice, but I'm also smiling a lot. Smiling, crying, laughing. It's like every emotion. Except for fear and hate. Every emotion except those. It's every emotion tied to a sense of knowing. Just knowing. And I can only hope that someday I'm capable of truly, finally bringing even a fraction of the gift I wish to give to the world. That's why I do the audio logs and I put them online and stuff, is because I can't guarantee that I'm going to live to even tomorrow, No one can. The only thing I've guaranteed is the present moment. And in the next, it could be gone. So you must do everything you can with what you have. You have everything you need already and always. Yourself to make anything happen. That is why I put it online, is because maybe if I were to die, maybe still the message could help people. And it's the same message too, that so many other messengers of love speak throughout history. What so many different religions try to get at with different words and different stories, and we get lost and get angry over the different stories and words we use to describe the same things without recognizing that we're speaking the same truths. That is just being a good person. Recognizing the beauty in everything and our duty, not enforced by anything or any God or any person, not enforced onto us, but it is still our duty nonetheless. The only punishment is in us not waking to our fullest potential. The punishment is in the missed opportunity of what could have been. But so long as you are alive, you can always make even more than you can imagine happen. And so truly it is not even a punishment, but a lesson teaching you and guiding you back towards your journey of realizing yourself and loving yourself. The same is for everyone. And there are so many others as well that have spoken it before me. And so many others who will speak the same thing after me. Because the truth remains undying and unchanging, whilst our story, built on top of this undying core, is ever-changing. And that's the beauty in it. Duality, once again, manifested. Change forever, and no change forever. Forever and never, in an instant. Beyond words, rooted in ineffability, and eternal in the moment, forever to have happened, and always happening in that moment, even once it's past, even if no one remembers, it will forever have happened, all of it. And it's the same kind of message. Once again, so many have spoken in the past, like Jesus or the Buddha, or even MLK or Gandhi, or so many others as well. I'm trying to remember the name of the person who sparked Sikhism as well. I really like that guy's message too. I forget his name. Something Guru. But anyways, that is not to say that I am some god or something, right? Because I am no better, and I mean this fully. I am no better nor worse than anyone or anything, because all of us truly are equal to everything else with infinite value, because within us each, infinite potential is forever present. And even if you were to just stay still and never adhere to that potential, you are still beautiful. Because for you being anything at all is beyond the confines of words, and that goes for everything. To be anything is the craziest, most absurd, most ridiculous thing ever, and that is precisely what beauty is. And you and I and everything else all shares in that equally. All of it is shared. Everything is shared. And nothing truly has any true control is how we control, the only control we actually have is how we view the uncontrollable around us. The uncontrollable things, because everything may as well be uncontrollable. But the way you perceive the uncontrollable things completely shapes your reality, and you get the final say every time. Even when someone is trying to enforce power or control over you, they only have as much power as you grant them within your mind. And that's the absolute beauty in it. You could be in a cage your entire life and still find more peace and love for reality in your mind, and be more free in your mind than your own captors, keeping you there. But even they are not evil, because evil isn't a thing. Much like how darkness isn't a thing. It is just a concept on the absence of something. Because darkness is not an entity itself. It is not an actual thing. It is like a shadow. Well, a shadow is the same thing as darkness, because all of it is the absence of light. But if there was only light, or if there was only darkness, either way, you would be blind. You would not be able to see the contrast in shapes and depth and all of these things. And so it is the dance between the two that is very necessary. The same goes anywhere else you look, because one thing can't exist without its contrast, to bring it out, to make it pop, to make it anything. To begin with, to give it a canvas, for it to be seen, to be perceived, to be anything. And that's the beauty as well, with balance being everywhere. But once again, back to what I was saying. Evilness, hatred, all of these things. Of course, you could say yes, of course there are chemicals in the brain, all this stuff, but on the abstracted level that we speak it on, right? And how we use it and how we describe emotion, we often put love as one side, goodness on one side, and evil on the opposite, and think that evil is an entity, this thing, when really it is merely just the absence of love and embracement of yourself in reality. Because if you embrace yourself, that reflects to everything else too, because what you see and perceive is a reflection of yourself, and it is precisely these gifts that built you to begin with, that taught you everything you know, that gave you every moment, every single hug, every smile, every moment of laughter amongst friends and your friends themselves, your family, all of it. All of it is a reflection of you, and is precisely what makes you, you, or anything to begin with. And all of it is shared and mutual and equal. For when you share a moment with someone, they are sharing a moment with you too. And even if the thing is not conscious, that it is having an experience with something else, it still is. Like me touching the air right now, or speaking into it, with the sounds I make such a way that one particle is in a different spot where it wouldn't have been otherwise had I not spoken. And then that influences another particle and another and another and another and another. And so, every moment, every action we take also quite literally directly influences everything on a physical level as well around us. It may as well go on for infinity. Though the influence the farther goes out may as well, people often say negligible, but it is still there nonetheless. And that is absolutely wonderful. One of the things I was telling my friends today on the hike was how the force of gravity between two objects in the equation itself, there's a bunch of this stuff on top, and it's all divided by the distance between the two. But for the force to be zero, truly, the distance would have to be infinite. And of course, gravity is not like an instant thing. It's something that permeates, whatever it is, propagates at the speed of light, sure. But it still will reach, given enough time, across the entirety of everything, right? And even if it weren't to interact with everything, say for example, like the breaking index being negative, for example, with the expansion of the universe, right? And it will keep going and going and going and going and going and going, right? Even if it can't catch up to that, guess what? At one point, everything was one, and then, boom. And even if it's not literally a part of the same thing, hear this when I say, even if it is not from the same point of origin, because the Big Bang is also theorized to have happened everywhere all at once, even if it is not quite literally from the exact same thing, it still shares in the wonderful gift that is to be. You don't need to be made by the same creator or thing or whatever it may be. You don't need to be born from the same parents. You don't need to be from the same culture. You don't need to be even from the same fucking point of origin from the Big Bang, or even if there was anything before outside of our sense of perception. Right? And yet anything that is still connected and equal through that, no matter what. And that is beyond words. Absolutely fucking beautiful. Beautiful. Wonderful. Something that I think as well with this expansion of the universe, I mean, if you think of it, because the way I view it, anything can be analogous to any other thing, because its description has infinite space, because it's ineffable at its core, and all words are made up and only approximate, and not even the billion, infinite, whatever amount of words or things to describe itself. You could take everything in its entirety to describe itself, and it still seemingly wouldn't be enough to describe its essence fully, that is to be anything, because truly it is rooted in nothingness itself, in which it was born from, and eventually will return to. But since we've already happened, it is merely just inevitable, that eventually it will happen again. Could be in a different way, and perhaps it makes some messed up universe where it can't support life, is that we are not even there to experience it or sense it. So then that goes by, maybe makes another, that goes by, maybe an infinite number of those go by. But one of them, eventually, since we are here experiencing the moment right now. Also, I just looked at my clock, it's 4:44 a.m. Immediately catches my eye whenever I see that. But, the point is that we are here, and that is already proof that it can happen, and it has happened. And since it has happened, it can happen, then given enough time, it will happen again. Perhaps even all the events playing out in the exact way they happen already, or another universe that supports life, but with the events playing out like entirely opposite. Who am I to say? The potential is infinite, now and forever. And in each and everything that is. But back to what I was saying about the expansion of the universe, and why I brought up the analogy, or the reason why I say everything is analogous to any other thing, right? And how, like, the microcosm to the macrocosm, how, just for a quick example, it's like superclusters, right? The biggest known structure in the universe, right? Looks just like our own neurons in the brain. Of course, it's different things holding them together and stuff, right? But it's wonderful how it emerges, this recursive nature of the universe we live in. So each and every thing that is, if you took one little thing and threw away the rest, right? And you were only left with that one little thing, what is the new everything? If you got rid of everything and everything else didn't exist except for this tiny little thing, it could be anything. What is the new everything? That thing, which is made up of tinier and tinier things, right? Just like our own bodies. We're like our own universes, with other universes making up a larger and larger one. And the universe and the galaxies, all these things, they may as well be their own universe. They may as well be their own everything. And they are. They are. Who's to say one everything is more or less beautiful than another everything? The fact of the matter is that they both hold the same infinite potential. It doesn't matter the size. It doesn't matter the intelligence or any of this stuff. It is woven into the very essence of being anything. Existence itself. Whether you are aware of it or not, whatever it is you do, you are still just as beautiful and equal to any other thing that is. But once again, I keep getting sidetracked. And there's another thing I want to go back to as well, because I feel like I didn't explain it fully as well. But first, I want to say how the expansion of the universe, and it's theorized anyways, that the universe is going to expand, and eventually we're not going to see any of these other stars or any of these other things, because they're going to be outside of our little bubble, our, like, neighboring realm, basically. But think about it for a second. Think about it. Once again, with an analogy, think of a tree dispersing its seeds, a flower, whatever it may be. You have one tree born from one seed, with all its branches interconnected, and from the same root, made of the same stuff, right? Or it could be made of different stuff. It doesn't have to be the same stuff that makes it up. The point is that it is born from the same seed, all of it is one and the same. And in fact, if different branches were made up of different things, the trees would maybe have different colors and look even more beautiful and wonderful. To be anything and to be a part of this universe, everything is weird. If nobody was weird, we'd all be the same person. And if nothing was weird, we'd all be one thing. In fact, we'd be nothing, because to even be a thing is the weirdest thing ever. So, yes. So it is wonderful to be different, because everything is different. If we all tried and all successfully became this standard, this normal we set for ourselves, we'd just be one fucking thing. We'd be the same person, doing the same exact things. And you can infinitely look for things to nitpick, to point out and call strange, and whatever it is, down to just like the number of atoms that make up your fingers, for example. You can nitpick infinitely deep, much like how you also, on the contrary, have an infinite potential to love and gift that love. The same is for all. But alas, the tree with its seeds, the wind for some may carry the seeds, or for some trees they just fall straight down to the ground, but disperses them nonetheless, right? And the seeds get spread out, and they go and they find somewhere, so that they may begin anew. The child of the last tree, recursive, perhaps in its own way, mutated, or even if it wasn't mutated, so many other factors would still attribute to how it is formed and what branches go where, but one and the same nonetheless, and unique, with no tree ever to be the exact same as it, even if it was the exact same, even if there was another tree in the future that grew the exact same way, in the exact same place. Guess what? It is still not in the exact place and time. Right? And say, for example, if the universe ended and it was born again, and there was a tree at the exact same time in that universe, right? It was planted, grown in the exact same place in the exact same way. They are still not the same, because now they are not in the same universe, the same total time. Except at that point, time is just, because it's our construct of change itself. This flow of change. So it is still not the same. For it to be the same, it is that thing itself. Because you can always go down and down and down and down and down, down to the very fluctuations in the particles themselves, and still say it is different. Only the thing itself can ever be that exact version. There are no true copies. There are no true clones. But we often mistakenly assume that, because our minds like to take shortcuts to make it easier for us. But in doing so, we become blind. That is why we must take a step back and recognize it all for what it is, and take it one step at a time, incrementally. And I brought all of that up because the universe is expanding and seemingly spreading out and dispersing as if seeds. And perhaps given enough time, and after the last star fades away, and perhaps after everything is turned to a black hole, and then eventually Hawking radiation makes it all radiate out until there are not even black holes left. But that's the thing, is that if there was no negative breaking index, everything would just sit still, and eventually there would be the heat death of the universe, correct? But that's the thing, is that it is seemingly yet another blessing, is another gift. It doesn't even have to be given by anything God. It just is. Everything is. And that is already beyond words once again. But for it to be negative, everything's going to just keep repelling away, repelling away, repelling away, repelling away. For whatever reason it is, dark energy is the current theory, which we don't even know what dark energy is currently at this present moment, or even dark matter for that matter. Currently, we theorize it's wisps or weakly interacting subatomic particles, or I don't remember, small particles, or whatever the S stands for, or maybe I got the whole thing wrong, but it's something like that. It's just these particles you can't detect that are basically invisible to us, but they interact with other ones and have mass, all that stuff. But I keep getting sidetracked because I try to fill in my gaps of what I speak so I can try to give you the fullest image I can possibly offer, because of course this is an inefficient way of truly communicating one-to-one, because words, once again, are approximations, and I only have so much time, and you only have so much time. Whoever is listening, I don't know if anyone would be other than me, but I'm going to share it online anyways. To try and give the fullest image I can, as if I'm making a painting with a fucking canvas that's a mile long and a mile tall. I still could have extended it further and used even more colors to give even more of a wonderful display, right? Or the size of the universe, why not another meter long, right? You can always expand it further. Until it has everything that you could ever attempt to paint on its canvas, which is basically everything in its entirety. As an analogy, of course, once again, not a literal, actual painting with paint, of course, but just as beautiful, just as wonderful, analogous, one way and the other. But, once again, after, right, this dark energy seemingly disperses these seeds out, and eventually after the black holes, they radiate, Hawking radiation, and eventually now it's just these particles, right? And they're all in this general vicinity. And given enough time, I'm no scientist, of course, but this is just speculation. Given enough time, when it seemed like these particles would then attract, and maybe condense back down. Now you're wondering, why don't they just become another black hole? Or another star? Maybe. Or perhaps entropy would also have their own mini heat death in that area. But since we have already happened at all, right? It is proof that it can happen. And perhaps, much like how it's like the Boltzmann brain or whatever being more probable than us, everything happening up until this point in our universe being in the way it is, right? But, it's like always possible, right? For anything to happen. Sure, it could be negligible, but it's just always still there, once again. And so it must be recognized for what it is, right? Not tossed aside, not skipped over, not shortcutted, but seen that it is still there. And given that probability, that possibility, given enough time, it will happen. Now, when we're talking about literal time and space-time in terms of our universe, right, it is strange if you were to arrive at a heat death, a mini heat death, right, in its own little pocket with everything else separated out due to the negative breaking index. But still, it begs the question again, what happened in quotation marks, of course, before, in quotation marks, our universe? Seemingly nothing. And And from nothing, everything is born because it holds the potential for everything to fill its place forever. And given enough quote-unquote time, right, it will occur. So it's seemingly this change woven into the very essence of nothingness and everything itself. Beyond what I can even begin to comprehend or put to words, but it is seemingly that, based on our logic anyways. Right? And so, even if there was this heat death, or even if they were just condensing down and becoming black holes or whatever, and then radiate back out, and they condense down, became black holes again, or whatever, right? Seemingly, given enough time, doesn't it seem possible? It is possible, and given enough time, that it will happen. That perhaps those atoms and everything will condense down in such a way that it explodes and bursts. Once again, I'm not a scientist, but, well, I'm a computer scientist, but I love science in general, but I don't have a degree in physics or anything. I just love learning about it more, and I want to learn more about it. But, of course, I can't say 100% for certain that it would happen this way, but this is just, of course, all of this is just an example to tell the core message of what I'm trying to get at, of course. In the same way I was talking about, everyone uses different words and stories to get at the same thing. That's what religions are, is that they're not perfect guidebooks, but they're moral compasses that point you in the right direction for you to walk, right? That you must take the steps of, yes, right? And not one is better than the other, but they all are equal and one and the same, and all trying to get at the same thing, using the same things available in their own way. And it is perfect in that way, the way it is all made to be, right? But, once again, doesn't it seem like eventually a new universe would be born, given enough time, of all this stuff collected and maybe condensed down, maybe has its own universe? And so just like a tree dispersing its seeds, our universe too will over time disperse itself, little parts of itself, because that's what seeds are in a tree too. It's a part of the tree that is cut off from it, made from it, right? So in the same way, our universe disperses and spreads out so that it may be born again, recursively, creates more of itself, and we're a part of that. We are change, aware of itself. And I, of course, got that quote, or that saying anyways, from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who I think if he was alive, we would be great friends. Same with a lot of other people I admire. But it's funny because I have yet to actually read a single book by any other philosopher. Any philosopher, right? Because, well, part of it is just because I need to get into a good habit of reading again, which I want to do, because I love books, but I haven't really read since high school. But the other thing is because I only really just need to, once again, the internet, we have a lot of things, so much stuff at our fingertips, right? Also, the recording just hit 4444 in the time. Sorry, I get so sidetracked. I love talking, and I only have one mouth. So, but, fuck. I'm trying to remember what I was talking about. Shit, what was I talking about? Oh, books and philosophers, yes. So, with these philosophers and stuff, I can read up online, get a general idea, and some more descriptive, some more in-depth things, like, for example, the spheres of existence from Soren Kierkegaard. For example, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name properly. I need to go back through, because for a long time, it's funny because for a long time I would, read up on all these philosophers and really love them and stuff, but since I'm reading stuff about them, right, not the books themselves, but just, the general kind of stuff, and they're more in-depth stuff, but not, a ton of it, right, but because I don't hear anyone else say their name, I would come up with my own pronunciation for their name. For example, Renee Guénon, I used to pronounce as Renee, or Reen Guénon, or something like that, which is a terrible slandering of the pronunciation, but I don't hear it, because I don't take classes for philosophy. I don't get taught by someone else, right, because it is a thing that you must do as yourself, right? The classes are only just a tool for guidance, for you to still walk the steps, right? It is still your brain, it is still your thoughts that is making sense of it, that you must choose, that you must solve on your own, right? Whether you have a teacher or not, life itself is the teacher, and we are the students of ourselves, because once again, we are this change. We are the universe understanding itself, which is something I also took from Carl Sagan right there, if you know that quote. Where's the cosmos? We are the cosmos understanding itself, I believe is along those lines. But yeah, so it's I read online a lot of these things, but I don't feel the need to devote myself to hardcore studying, right? I mean, of course, it could be different for someone else, and to that I would say follow your heart and your passion, because that is exactly what led me to this moment, was following my gut, following my heart, following love, following this sense of duty, that is to act out of, as Aristotle would put it, virtue, to attain your own eudaimonia, aka the greatest good, aka a balanced state of mind, an open mind, a loving mind. And to love is merely to embrace existence, and that reflects on you in everything. The embracement of being for what it is, accepting it fully, and seeing it as the gift that it is. You don't even need to feel the chemical sensations of excitement, or joy, or happiness, dopamine, serotonin. You don't even need to have these things to still think, to still be aware, and see what it is for what it is, the reality, this gift that it is. The chemicals that give you those emotions and stuff are only things that affirm the thoughts you hold, right? And sometimes I myself have a hard time feeling physical excitement for years now due to this weird brain fog, which I think is NDPH, or New Daily Persistent Headache, is the best thing I've come to say what I have since 2018, but that's another thing I have accepted, and I don't even notice until I think about it or talk about it, like right now, because it is so in the background, and my brain over time has prepared itself, basically, and rewired itself. No other medication helped with that. No doctors, no nothing, even was I going to say, though? Shit. Oops. What am I doing with my light? But yeah, so I think the Depakote, or because it acts as like a weird antidepressant, whatever, so it just like killed all my emotion, and I really hated it in the moment because I couldn't feel happy, I couldn't feel excitement, I could only feel sadness, and so I spent a lot of time just being sad because it was the thing I could only feel. But when I talk about stuff like this, when I see everything for what it is, I get the most wonderful sensation and butterflies and everything when I talk about this stuff, right? And just joy and happiness. But even if I didn't feel that, I would still know. I'd understand and accept it still. My situation, if I could not even feel any of those things still. And sometimes I don't feel those butterflies, but I still know. I still pursue it, right? The affirmations do definitely help, right? These feelings and sensations, these chemicals that confirm our thoughts. And without them, we can get confused and question if what we're thinking is true, even genuine, or if we're even, things we're doing are genuine or whatever it is. And it can be confusing. But even then, you are not just these chemicals. You are not just the emotions. You are not just your thoughts. You are all of them. Collectively, and stuff that I probably I don't even know. There might be even more that makes it up. But the fact of the matter is that we're connected to everything else. We're everything aware of itself. And that is already marvelous. People seek for spiritualism or ghosts. We are already ghosts. And perhaps someday I'll be dead and you'll be hearing this audio log and it'll be a different sense of the word ghost, right? But in this recording, I am alive. Even when this recording is deleted and gone, I will forever have said these things as a ghost operating this meat machine. Tell me that isn't fucking awesome. And the most strangest, craziest thing ever. Because the things we often seek and make up stories about for the supernatural. How? Because we think of supernatural as the unordinary. Because we are so comfortable and used to nature and everything we're around that we view it sometimes, and a lot of people, as mundane and the ordinary. But the ordinary is the unordinary. The ordinary is the most absurd thing ever to be anything ever. And that is already precisely all these things that we seek. We look everywhere, elsewhere, other than right in front of us and within us. And once you start to do that, you'll start to see that. And once you recognize and accept all of that, that's when you can say you've matured. You can live to be 80 years old and have more experience than someone who is 20, for example. But that experience means nothing if you never analyze it yourself. If you never do something with it. Right? You are still equal and still just as wonderful and beautiful, correct? Right? But some people are more lost than others. Right? read up and learn from others and their way, right? But do not follow directly in their footsteps, or else you're never taking your own, right? They have already happened, or perhaps they are still happening. But you must ask yourself, when am I going to happen? And you make it happen. And that can only be done by journeying into the unknown, headstrong, into the greatest area of outside your comfort zone. You must seek it, and that is how you grow. Because before we were born, this entire universe was outside our comfort zone, and we still changed into it. And look at all these gifts we've had so far, right? What was I talking about? But yes, that's why I don't feel the need to read more on them, because I have the general idea of what they stood for, their main theories and stuff, right? I don't need to read every word they ever wrote. I just need to read enough so that I do understand what they stood for. And so thus I can get a grasp of who I resonate more with, who is more similar to what I speak in their works, right? Once again, like Kierkegaard, or Pierre, or some works of Carl Jung and Albert Camus, Immanuel Kant, right? But another thing a lot of people also get worked up on is this kind of just strange sense of like battling to have the moral high ground or the better philosophy. There is no such thing as better. There is only what is, right? And the truth already is. And we are not battling with one another, but working. We collectively are a machine, taking these steps and guesses and refining our guesses towards what is. Right? And of course, we will never know anything fully. Other than that, we know nothing. Right? That is from Socrates. Right? That also reminds me, Aristotle is another one that I really love, especially with virtue ethics. I find it beautiful and very similar as well to Buddhism, and why I like it in the same way, which you have to be open-minded and balanced between the two vices in every action you take, right? Because too much of anything is bad, right? And so, but yeah. And once again, it's like, all I may know is that I know nothing. Of course, being because, for all we know, we could be in a simulation, everything could change in an instant. I could ask, hey, is gravity going to stop working tomorrow? Based on our observations and what we have seen so far, right? In history and all these other works and stuff, right? We could say, oh, most definitely. But is it guaranteed to still work the way it does? No. Out of nowhere, gravity could just stop working, and then everything just fucking goes crazy, right? Our very, particles and atoms that make us up could just start going shoo or whatever. I don't even know what would happen fully, right? But, it would probably be like the end of the universe kind of thing, right? And that's why it's so wonderful that everything's so balanced, our universe itself. If even some of these constants were slightly tweaked, it would not support life. But it does support life because we are here. That's something that I was told by my astronomy professor. philosophy. I wish I spoke to him more. But anyways, what was I saying? Yes, okay. But yeah, you cannot guarantee, no one can guarantee, you don't control the way the universe works. This very thing, that is what birthed you in the first place, right? This flow of change that connects everything, even back to the nothingness seemingly in which it was born from. I don't know if our universe is encapsulated within another thing, some other universe or something that's higher up or whatever it may be, right? That may be under an entirely different system of logic. I don't know that. Do you know that? You could even go to the first thing ever, right? Say, for example, it's a conscious God that made everything, right? You could ask them, hey, where'd you come from? What made you? First off, they could lie to you. But say, for example, they cannot lie. Say, for example, they're so morally and wonderful and everything, right? They're like, they could be the Buddha or whatever, right? Except the Buddha himself, or themselves. There's multiple Buddhas and stuff as well, but I'm kind of speaking now where it's like, I don't know fully because I'm not Buddhist, but I love Buddhism and stuff, but where the Buddha is not, the whole thing with Buddhism is that there's not some ultimate God, but it is within yourself, basically, kind of thing. But anyways, that is an entirely different rabbit hole, but what I'm saying is, say for example, this God, this conscious God at the beginning is as if a Buddha, or as if Aristotle's virtue ethics, or as if the way I speak of as being this ultimate goodness, as in complete openness, a complete honesty, brutal honesty, totally honest, right? All the time, loving of everything, embracing everything, realizing that they are an artist creating art that is a reflection of themselves, right? Say, for example, this conscious God at the very beginning is the most ultimate good and wonderful and just love that you can imagine, right? And so they can't lie. They won't lie, right? And so you ask them the question, what made you? They could say, oh, I've just always been. But then you could be like, what if something else made you and granted you all the ability ever except for you to know that they made you and that you haven't always been, right? Or they could say, I came from nothingness, and in that case, hey, me too. Because I was nothing once, and then I was made into something by something else, right? So one and the same once again. Just as crazy, just as insane and infinitely deep and ineffable, equal in that. Just like how a child is equal in essence to their parent. Doesn't matter that they're not as smart or smaller or not as experienced or whatever it may be, or they haven't done as much, right? Or lived as long, or came first. In order of everything, right? But they're still equal. The same way as everything else, right? Because think about it, if that was the case, where the child was not as equal to the parent, then that means that over time, people will become less and less valuable, apparently. But that's not the case. And people would be able to point at someone and say, hey, you're not as old, you're not as valuable. But that's not the case. The essence of beauty and value is woven into your very being simply by you existing, regardless of how everything came to be. And that unites, essentially, at least in my mind, every religion and even atheism. But, anyways, back to the question, right? You could ask this all-knowing God, or seemingly all-knowing as far as they could even tell, right? Where'd you come from? Nothingness. Okay, so then nothingness is God. I guess so. Because that's how I define it. God is everything and nothing, and the change between the two. Doesn't have to be conscious or not. It just is. Same thing as a conscious God who could say, oh, I've always just been. Okay, well, I guess me too as well, because every instant is kind of its own infinity. A long time. You could define it any way you want, or something, right? Then you can ask these same questions, go up a step further and say, hey, other God, what made you? Ask them the same fucking thing. And whatever they answer, you still don't know. Guaranteed. Once again, nothing is guaranteed other than the present moment. And you can't know anything 100% other than you know nothing. Everything is a guess. That's why you must try your best to give it your best guess. Right? But yes. I don't even know why I started speaking about the God stuff to begin with. I was talking about the philosophers, and I don't remember what I transitioned between the two. Anyways, there was another thing I wanted to reiterate, because I said earlier, and I got sidetracked, talking about evilness and goodness, and how evilness is not an actual thing, just like how the devil is not an actual thing. It is a potential for us to act in that way. It is a personification of our ability to look away from the undying truth of unconditional love. Because that's what it is. Evilness, in our sense of definition, everything, right, is not an actual thing, much like how darkness is not an actual thing. It is just the absence of something. And the absence, it is the absence of love, of an embracement, of a passionate drive and embracement and acceptance of everything in yourself, and recognizing that it is all a gift. Hatred, fear, indifference. Fear and hatred as well being born from indifference, because because it's often said as well that indifference is the opposite of love, right? Because if you are indifferent, if you are uncaring to change, to learn, you will never understand more. You will never understand these things that are still unknown to you. And since we, as biological beings, right, we intrinsically fear the unknown, because the unknown may bring death, and the whole point of biology's main, primary goal is to live long enough to reproduce so you can have babies and recursively, keep the cycle going, right? And they evolve and over time change, and every single thing is different and its own image of everything, right? Once again, like I've been speaking about, analogous to any other thing, if you want to look deep enough, right? Still there. Some may say negligible, but still there, nonetheless, right? But yes, biology's main primary function is for you to live long enough to reproduce. And fear is a thing that is good in terms of biology's way, right? But for the mind, for intelligent beings, it can easily lead you in a rabbit hole to one of the vices, right? Throw you out of balance. I know it's happened to me 1 billion times. More times than I can write down or count, right? Because life is a bitch, but it's also a fucking beautiful bitch. Because the pain's what grows you. And you can view it however you want. You can view everything to be hell, and it is exactly that. Or you can view it to be heaven, and it is exactly that. And that is how I choose to view it, because it has infinite potential. And why not view it all the way up with as much potential as you can fill in that gap, right? Because reality is not intrinsically, objectively guaranteed, meaningful at all, right? But that does not mean that it is meaningless. It just is. And we get to either sit and reject change and reject life and reject all of this stuff, right? hate and fear and stay in it and view it to be meaningless. Nihilism, or actually nihilism, I think, is actually a little bit different than that, but along those lines, right? You reject all this stuff, say it's meaningless, all this stuff. It is exactly that in your world. But someone else can say, oh, how beautiful is the sun, the sky, my boyfriend, girlfriend, my partner, right? My lover. How beautiful are they? How beautiful am I? What a beautiful, wonderful body it is. How incredible even my own hands are just to have these things, right? You can say all of those things. And that is exactly what it is in your world. And as someone who is lucky enough to reach that state of being, that state of mind, through the conditioning of all these different experiences and your own analysis, of course, right? It is your duty, then, not enforced by anyone, but seemingly woven into it, is a duty that all of us have, that every intelligent, conscious being has, to act as a guardian, to act as a giver, as a teacher, as a helper, as a friend, as a lover, as a family member, right? To everything and everyone. To gift them the love that they need, the guidance, the help, whatever it may be. It is dependent on the situation. It's different every time because everyone's different and the situation is unique. No other situation is exactly in the same way as that one, right? It may be similar, but it's never 100% the same, other than the thing itself, right? And so, if you are lucky enough, as am I, I'm very fortunate to be able to reach this point. And there are many times where I nearly took my own life, but I didn't. I did not. And that is what hope is. Right? That's the difference as well between blind faith that a lot of religions romanticize, right, over history, and a knowing hope, right? Because it is different to blindly follow something where all of it, it's like if you just take it for face value, but it is another thing for you to passionately dig down to its core so you can understand the seed, so you can understand the tree and why it branches in that way, right? And that is a knowing hope, a knowing that eventually, given enough time, even if we go into nuclear war and all life on Earth ends, right? Or even if the universe ended and stuff and all that stuff, we have already happened. And if you yourself as a person have felt love or happiness or joy in any moment in your entire life, you already know that it can happen. And if you ever made anyone else happy, you have the potential to bring that already. It has always been within you. And it can happen again even if all life ended. Life could emerge again. We've already happened. Who's to say it can't happen again and again and again and again? Gently guiding us, the very essence of existence, of this flow of change, no matter where it came from. It is, and all of it, everything is interconnected through it. Everything is one and the same, and a reflection of itself, of each other. Everything, the whole collective, and even a little part of it that makes the whole collective, is a reflection, equal, analogous to each other, recursive. Everything, every single thing, everything, gently guiding us to being and to loving, to embracing our reality and recognizing that we have a duty as change aware of itself to act out of the fullest potential we can muster. To not even hate. Not even hate. Not fear. Not even death itself do we fear. For in these moments we are already eternal. For everything is a gift that forms us, and we are a gift back unto everything. But yes, a duty, a knowing hope, a knowing that someday, given enough time, love will win. And we are a part of that change towards it, towards maturity. And even once we reach this mature state collectively as a species, what next? Oh, maybe there are aliens in the universe as well. Maybe we go and try helping them out, right? Be like, hey guys, let's all just be friends, LOL. Let's just love life for this and this and this and this and this and this and that. You can list off the infinite reasons like I've been trying to do in this audio log, right? But even more than that, because you can always look deeper. The general idea, and even when all life in the universe, and maybe outside of the universe, or whatever, all come into this, everything that is change aware of itself. If all of us came to the state of love, you may be like, oh, what then? Because I also speak of how no change at all is the truest definition of death. But really, the difference is that if all of us came into loving, then it's like, hey guys, the party's really just begun. Because now there's infinite potential still. That part doesn't change. You can make anything. Anything you make is a new version of it. Anything you make, it could be similar. You can even trace over someone's fucking drawing, and the difference in the atoms that you fucking use to make the graphite and the pencil or whatever on the paper is different. Truly. You are an artist making art, and same with everything else. Creating itself. Painting itself. Painting more of itself. On an infinite blank canvas. All of it. All of it. But yes, even if that's the thing, is where it seems natural that given enough time, eventually that is just bound to happen, that we reach that state. And perhaps maybe the universe ends, and then the universe is reborn again, and then we have to try to refigure it out, right? But even then, right, change. The only true death is if there was no change. But there's always change. There's always potential for change, even outside of time. Seemingly. As far as I can guess. Once again, it's all a guess, and it's my best guess. But yeah, it's just, and even then, even if the universe ended, and then it born again, and we have to refigure it out, the story didn't end and start a new story. It's still the same story. It's all a part of the same story. Different smaller stories making up the bigger story. Much like smaller things making up the bigger thing. The universe. Or everything outside of it and the universe. And before and after and everything all across. That is. Anything that is a part of the story. You don't even have to even know about it for it to still be. Right? It's just so marvelous. Sorry for the noise. My dad is awake upstairs. It's 5:40 a.m. right now. Anytime they flush the toilet, there's pipes that run in my wall, so it fucking, it like runs fucking through my walls and shit. So you probably heard that. I think it picked it up on the audio recording. But, yeah, yeah, knowing hope. And going back to what I was saying as well about biology and stuff and fear, because if you're uncaring, the opposite of love is to be indifferent. So to not care to understand the unknown, to not care to grow, to not care to change, to refine yourself, to understand yourself, to accept yourself, you will, of course, not be able to care enough to learn more about the unknown. So because you intrinsically are kind of built to fear the unknown, the stuff that you don't care enough to understand, it's going to remain unknown. And you're going to remain scared because you're too uncaring to change that, to seek something, higher, to refine yourself, to love yourself, right? So you will stay in fear, whatever it may be that may be causing the fear. And since no one likes feeling scared, right? Feeling scared feels terrible. It's a horrible thing, especially if you're constantly in fear. And since you don't like feeling bad, you eventually grow to hate what makes you feel scared deep down, even if you don't recognize that it is something that scares you, if you don't know why it scares you, right? And so that's where hate comes from. Hate comes from fear, and fear comes from indifference. Or better yet, say for example, someone who does not feel fear. Once again, hate is just, or someone that doesn't even feel hate or fear, right? It is still this kind of indifference, this lack of, or even just the lack of understanding, ignorance as well, indifference and ignorance, because ignorance and indifference are intertwined. We all start at ground zero, completely ignorant, right? But indifference also keeps you ignorant. But also a lot of people are just not as fortunate in the way the events play out. So some may go their entire lives and never realize these things, right? And they'll remain ignorant. But once again, the only true definition of death is if there is no change at all. But death itself, in our terms of biology, literally is another change. It is Ouroboros. Once again, there's no beginning, there's no end, there's only change. And so they will just eventually, even if they went to nothing, I don't know if there is or isn't an afterlife, like a literal thing you wake up to, right? Maybe everything's a dream, but that doesn't mean it's any less real, right? Because anything that is still just as crazy. Any experience is just as valid and crazy as any other experience. It's woven into the very essence of what it means to be. Doesn't matter the context. I'm trying to remember what I was saying. What was I saying? Very essence of being. I get so sidetracked once again because I only have one mouth. I was talking about fear. Someone who doesn't feel fear. Indifferent and ignorance. Yes. Okay. Yes. Ignorance and indifference stay together. You could literally not even, someone who may have more of a psychopathic kind of brain, right? They're born with, right? Which they can't control. And once again, everyone's equal, everyone's just as beautiful. Doesn't matter what you're born as, doesn't matter whatever you have or whatever brain stuff you got going on, because you're a unique copy of everything once again, right? Right? So, so it's if you do not feel even fear or hate or love or any of these things, like I was saying earlier, right? You don't even have to feel the literal actual chemicals or whatever to still reach a sense of knowing. Because love is so much more than just chemicals interacting. It is a knowing. It is change aware of itself. We do not need a literal, what we typically think of as a spirit or a soul, because in literally just being anything already, it's just as crazy as if, even if there was souls or spirits, it's still just as crazy. Infinitely crazy. Doesn't matter where it came from, doesn't matter what you're made of, doesn't matter your background, or even what you've done. You're just as crazy as anything else. And that's the truth of it. That's the reality of it, right? And I just realized I keep saying right a lot. I don't know when I start saying right, but you get, I think that's a good way of putting it. You get it. You get me, right? If you're saying yes right now, hello, this is me from the past. What's up? Or maybe I'm from the future. I don't know. Time's awesome and crazy and weird, right? And all I know is that I know nothing. I don't fucking know. Maybe someone, fucking given enough time, is able to uncover this in another universe, or... That's the thing. I don't know, and it seems that given enough of this change, that's gonna happen. So what's up? I guess. Fucking crazy if that's actually... I don't know. But I'm gonna give it my damn best guess. I'm trying to remember. Fuck, dude, I keep getting sidetracked because ignorance and indifference. Someone who cannot feel this, love is greater than just chemicals. But yes, once again, indifference. Right? If you don't care, you're going to stay ignorant. You're going to stay scared of the unknown because you don't understand it. And you're going to be in this, this rut. You're going to be in what is, what hell symbolizes. What hell itself, the idea of it, is a story used to convey this message that other religions also go at, such as illusions in Buddhism, and I believe also Hinduism, right? Because Buddhism kind of came after Hinduism as well and kind of adopted some of the same things, but of course it's not the same. Has a lot of things different. The Eightfold Path compared to whatever the 4 different states were in Hinduism, where it's like hell or heaven, or I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. But yes, once again, that's a whole nother different thing, and I'm no expert on any of those, in depth, but I love learning about them. So, what is it? But yes, what hell symbolizes, right, is hell is not a literal place. It is a state that you can at any point change out of or return to based on how you view everything yourself. It is a mental state, a spiritual state. And once again, there's a quote as well from Pierre that I really love, that matter is just spirit moving slow enough to be seen, and that also we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Because I could have been born as anything else as well, some of the animals and stuff, could have been born as them.
I was just born as this. Not that I was better or I did anything to deserve being born as a human. I just am. And they just are too. And that wall and that poster and that, that monitor or that mirror or anything just is that. Not that it's any better or worse. It just is. It just is. And it's just as beautiful. Because it's its own version of everything. Right? So it doesn't need to have, you don't need to have a literal spirit. You don't need to, because it is already woven into the essence of being anything, into the atoms or whatever. It's like, what is an atom? People like try to segregate like the secular and the religious when really both of them have always been interconnected. That's why I love native culture, especially, and the way that they view that kind of stuff, where their way of life, especially back before the colonists took over and slaughtered their people, right? And try to whitewash them out of the history, or out of history and out of existence entirely, and yet they still survive. Right? Is that and also another thing about that, I love how, two-spirited people, right? Which was a thing coined in the 1990s, right? But each tribe had their own word for it, their own term used for two-spirited, quote-unquote, people. And it was basically the entire spectrum of LGBTQ+, right? And they existed in their gender egalitarian society for thousands of years. Thousands of years. As equals. Even it was seen to be a normal part of their culture. And so, it's just another beautiful thing. Another very beautiful thing. But, what is it? What was I going to say? But yes, for their way of life was that the religious and the secular are not segregated or separate. Life itself is a spiritual experience. We are ghosts. And this is already like some semblance of like an afterlife as well. Like, it's just wonderful the way they did it. And I think I would have been really great friends with them as well if I was alive at that time and I knew what I know now. And I would have absolutely loved to have been part of that. I'm trying to think, what was I saying? Oh, yes, but the spiritual stuff and reality itself, they're one and the same. It's like, what is an atom, right? And then you can take it a step further and you could be like, what are quarks? Like the 3 quarks or whatever that make up each. Well, actually, I skipped a step. You could be like, what is an atom? Okay, it's a bunch of neutrons and protons, right? Or sometimes just one proton if it's hydrogen, right? But then you could be like, what is a proton? What is a neutron? What is an electron? And it's like, quirks, all this stuff. And then you could be like, okay, what are quarks? And then you get into like the Higgs boson particles or whatever, and what else? I'm not once again, I'm not an expert, but or the Higgs, all these things, right? Or muons or whatever. And then you can be like, what is a muon? What is a Higgs boson particle? What is that? What is it made of? You can go smaller and 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 smaller. And it's theorized that the Planck length is the smallest length, right? Okay, well, let's take something that's the Planck length, right? The smallest, let's say that it is the smallest length, and it's not just this infinite recursive thing that goes down and down and down and down infinitely, right? Which is probably realistically the actual case. Much like how the universe seemingly can be infinitely large, once again, infinite potential kind of thing, right? And it's just recursive on every level, and a reflection and knowledge to itself. But let's say that the Planck length is the smallest length, okay? And let's say something that is at that length, some particle that is the Planck length, right? What is it made of? Right? What is that made of now? And maybe you can go to like string theory or some other theory, right? And I think a lot of people, my astronomy professor also didn't like string theory. I'm not an expert on it either, right? I don't know what is the answer to that. That's why we keep seeking it anyways, because we're these things themselves aware of themselves. We're just trying to figure out ourselves even more and more, and the more we figure ourselves out, the more of an appreciation and gratitude and love we can have, a passion for being, right? And even if you don't know where all this stuff came from, or the science or the physics of it or whatever, you still love. You still can give love. Period. And you still are your own version of everything, your own universe. You are still equal and just as beautiful no matter what it is you do or you learn or you understand. But it's up to you whether or not you come into realizing that. Whether or not you find the heaven that was always waiting inside you. That is up to you. It has always been up to you. Same goes for every single one of us. But once again, back to the question of what is that particle? What is that? Can you even answer that? Is it possible? Because if the smallest length possible is the Planck length, what could be smaller that makes it up? So it's just that, so everything is made up of that particle? Okay, let's say it's made up of that. Or say that even a smaller particle than that makes up everything, right? What is that? You can keep asking that question. And it seems eventually there's only one thing left you can really say is it's just like nothingness. Even empty space in our universe has fluctuations constantly happening on the quantum level. Stuff is still changing even in empty space. What is that? What is that? What makes up that? And then that, and that, and that, and that, and that, and that, and that. Until you get to literally nothing. Or what if it's just another illusion? If you seek even deeper, because we used to think that just like vacuum space or whatever is just straight up nothing. But even then we find nothing, like empty space is actually not empty. Or is it even possible to be empty? Is it even possible for there to be nothing? With the potential for everything to happen in nothingness, it seems... oh my God. Because, say, for example, everything is born from nothing. Let's say that from the get-go, nothingness. If there's nothing there to experience the nothingness, though, then it's like infinite time in an instant, right? And since we exist, that means that there had to have been a possibility for everything to emerge from it. And since nothing's there to experience time or change, because nothing's changing, but it could change, that means it basically snaps into being something, because it's an infinite amount of time condensed into an instant, much like literal instants ourselves, because seconds and all this shit are just like words, because they approximate, and it's something that we can use to attempt we can use as like tools for ourselves to understand the stuff that is ineffable at its core, right? Yeah, it's like, is it even possible for there to be empty space? Sorry. Any emptiness. I never thought of that before. Is it even possible for there to be empty space? I don't think so. I don't think so. Oh my. I don't think so. But let's say that there is. For the sake of this. Well, actually, it doesn't matter either way. It doesn't. Because say, for example, this particle is made up of literal nothingness itself, or just more stuff and for perpetuity. Because it was empty space, but now it's made up of something. Something that was empty space is now something and made something else that would have been empty space otherwise, which is now something, which makes something else, which would have been empty space, but is now something. Even literal quote-unquote empty space that we think is empty between atoms and stuff is not empty. There's fluctuations. It's like, what is energy? It's like, okay, what is made up of energy? What is made up of the thing that makes up energy? Is it even possible for there to be empty space at all? Once again, I don't know for sure. But, holy fuck. And side note, I want to say once again and reiterate, I have not said in this audio log, but I've said many times and to many people in the past, I've never done drugs. Never done psychedelics. I guess I can say I have drinking alcohol one time, and that was when I was in Italy this last summer, and I was on this tour bus or whatever with my family. We go to this place where they had this S plus whatever tier wine, which is like the most finest refined wine of, like highest grade wine. I don't know what it's actually called, but I tried literally just a sip of it because they were giving it out because it came with the tour bundle or whatever. I took just a little and drank it. And I did not finish the glass because after that sip, I'm like, I'm never drinking alcohol again. Because all my life, I've not liked carbonated drinks because I do not like it feels like acid in my mouth kind of thing. I don't like the carbonation. I don't like it in my throat. I don't like burping. I don't like having to fucking do any of that stuff, right? Yeah, it was like, with the wine, it was like that, but like 100 times that effect. And I was like, I am never drinking this again. And I felt nauseous for the next hour and stuff, because my liver and everything or whatever was definitely not like used to consuming alcohol. And so it was just like a crazy effect. And also because I think Italy, they also have like a way more higher concentration of it. Probably in their wine, so I don't know. I was like nauseous. I'm like, I don't like this. It didn't even taste good. I only like like the grape tasting part of it. But at that point, why not just have grape juice and just skip all the other shit? I'm like, I don't even like this stuff. Yeah, I did not enjoy it. So I guess I can say I have had alcohol. But literally one sip, never again. I have no desire to try it. I just figured in that moment, I'm like, if I'm going to try it ever, might as well try apparently the greatest wine in the world. Might as well, right? Because otherwise I'll always be wondering, oh, what if I did try it and I did get addicted? Or what if I didn't get addicted? Because that was the biggest kind of like subconscious fear, was that I would get addicted if I even like tasted it. Because of my family's history, and also because it is unfortunately as well. It took my mother's life. But she was the greatest, strongest person ever. I've come to terms with it, accepted it, and she's with me every single day, and I am a reflection of her, and she's continued on through me. And someday, she'll just wake up as something else, as far as I can tell. And even if she didn't, then once again, will always have forever happened. And since everything's interconnected, you can... maybe someday someone's advanced enough to be able to backtrack all of this stuff and be able to have a whole catalog of everything that's happened, and infinite amount of stuff, events that go back and just always has been. I don't know. It's a guess. But yeah, so I have not done drugs at all. Don't want to do drugs. And I specifically, even though I feel like I would enjoy a psychedelic experience, right, on LSD or DMT or whatever it may be, or acid, whatever you want to call it, although I feel like I would enjoy it a lot, and I would find it a very beautiful experience, and I'd want to do it in a respectful way, in the same way that Southern American or Central American tribes, I don't remember where it is, but they do with ayahuasca. It's a spiritual enhancer, a spiritual agent they use. And basically all the stuff you see and all that stuff, it's a reflection of yourself once again. It's you basically kind of just like, whoa, you know, the whole kind of ego death thing where it's like, where am I? Where am I? What is self? When in reality, your self is both nothing but everything at the same time. And still this individual piece of it and its own everything. It's all of it and neither. And it's both everything and neither combined. So that's like another state that I don't even have a word for in English. Just is. And that's far more beautiful than just being in the mindset that you're just this little thing and you're on your own and, you know. Because really, everything's connected. I mean, that's the whole thing of ego death, you know. And a lot of people get freaked out and stuff, and it can fuck them up, and it's a really unfortunate thing. I myself had something of like an ego death, but that was through critical thought. And it was basically, of course, because for me to even understand these things, I had to experience it myself, right? It's not like I just woke up one day and I'm like, oh, I understand what ego death is all about now. No, it's because I thought about it. And I lost myself. But you have to lose yourself to find yourself. Something Willem Dafoe said. But yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the whole reason why I was even going on that tangent was to say that, yeah, the spiritual and the secular are not segregated. Nothing is segregated. Everything is one and the same. And we try to split things up, right? We try to, try to look at things in a duality kind of way, because you can see duality like all around, but so too with duality, it's not just black and white. It's not just this or that, or just yes and no, or just good and bad. It's a dance of color. It's a dance of contrasts, of black and white, and grays, and blues, and reds, and yellows. And I don't mean just literally in terms of light that you see. Of course, I'm using it in a romanticized kind of artistic, kind of poetic kind of way to describe anything. Because once again, for anything to be anything at all, there has to be a contrast to bring it out, aka its absence. Pretty much everything but that thing is the absence itself. And I'm trying to think here, if everything didn't have the absence of that thing, say for example there was only light, right? Then how are you to see? If there was only darkness, how are you to see? If there was only sound, how are you to hear any difference in the sound? If there was only silence, how are you to hear any difference in the sound? If there was only feelings constantly in your nerves, how are you to tell when you actually touch something? Or if you have no touch at all, how are you to tell if you're touching or feeling something? Unless if you're using your eyes. But if you can only see light, you can't use your eyes. If you only hear sound, you cannot use your ears. If you can only feel sensations, you can't feel. It's through the dance of the opposites, of the vices. Can you create the spectrum of sensation, of experience as a whole, much like everything and nothingness itself? Only through these two polar opposites can you have a dance between the two. It's not just one and the other. It's both and neither, all at once. And it cannot be any other way. Or else, how are you to tell what is light when there is no absence of it? How are you to tell what music is? How are you to tell what sound is when you only hear a constant highest level volume all the time? How is it any different from silence? How is constant light any different than darkness if you were blind either way? The reality of it is that it is no different. It is no different. Too much of anything throws off the balance. That is why we must equal both, accept both, accept the spectrum, accept all of it for what it is, and how everything collectively, marvelously, is already balanced and continues to self-balance itself, and we are a part of that. And we ourselves, as our own little universe, are actively trying to find a way to find our own balance. And even things like literal physics as well, with like pressure. You know, if it's a high pressure, it's trying to, I want to get to low pressure, you know, and so it could stabilize. And even in math, you know, the equal sign, this thing is equal to this thing. They both add up to the same. Equal. Equivalent. One and the same. And it can be hard to see that. It can be really hard to see that and grasp that as well. But that is why you gotta seek it. And then, eventually, if you keep at it, you will see it as well. Follow your heart. Follow your love. Follow your passion. Follow your dreams. Enjoy life. Enjoy yourself. And do not fear or hate anything. And if you do, well, if you hate that person or whatever, you're going to feel bad. That itself is the the consequence of it. That is both what the devil or whatever personifies. Not a literal person. Hell's not a literal place. It's, and sins, you know, if everything, you know, if a sin, at least in terms, when we're speaking in Christianity at least, in Christianity, a sin is seen as a crime against God. But if everything's God, including you, an extension of, right, then when you act in this sinful manner, you are just committing a crime against yourself and others, a disservice. But the consequence isn't, you know, some literal fucking place after death, right? It's in that moment itself of you doing it. You feel bad. You treat someone bad, you might feel bad, or even if you don't regret it and hate them with every fiber of your being, hate itself is a bad thing. It's not fun to experience. Some people may get a kick out of hate as well. Someone out there probably maybe loves hating. And then in that case, it's something even deeper interconnected with something else. Because they're still in a state of illusion. Now, we're going over more towards Buddhism. A state of illusion. These are distractions, these things that keep them in this kind of mindset. They keep themselves in this mindset because they continue to view these things in the way they do, but they can change it at any moment. They could make the wrong right. Not because they're forced to or they're threatened with eternal damnation, because nothing is ever eternal other than change, baby. Nothing is eternal other than change and what has already happened in the present moment. Truly. Yeah. Because once again, given enough time, bound for something to change. It's the very nature of everything, of existence, of even seemingly nothingness itself. Change. 4, 4, 4, 4, fucking 4. The number I view as the number of change, that is. 2 of them add together make 8, which of course is the infinity symbol, and call back to the Egyptians' Uraeus, which is the origin of the infinity symbol, with 2 states: the coiled state, where they are infinitely stuck inside themselves, lost, tangled up in themselves, or the risen state, in which they rise above their coiled state and call and rise to their duty to act out of love, unconditionally. For that is the true magic. What was I saying though? But yes, the 8 and 4 adding together to make 8. 8 being the infinity symbol as well, flipped 90 degrees, is also arbitrary in how it came to be. So, and I mean, same with the words I use and same with all these things, but they're not random, because randomness is just the illusion that you have presented when you lack the understanding of the cause. So, say for example, computer randomizers. None of them are truly random because they're all ran on an algorithm that can be coded. You have a certain seed, or you can have another algorithm to pick a certain, even more random seed, right? But nothing is ever truly random in that sense. The only thing that we can really get a sense of that's actually random to us in the current moment anyways is like muons coming through the atmosphere and hitting like detectors, and you can actually use that to make an actual number randomizer, but it's only random because we don't understand it still. We don't understand the cause. And someday, we probably will understand it. Even if life goes out, eventually life may come back, or even if the universe ends, and then maybe another universe is born again. And eventually, maybe that universe dies out. It didn't support life. Maybe another one is emerged. Maybe that one doesn't support life. Infinite number of those until life eventually emerges again. And maybe life there, everything just fucking blows up. Maybe it ends, and then another universe, infinite amount later. Eventually, something is going to get it right. It's inevitable. Inevitable. It's ineffable as well. Everything's ineffable. And inevitable. Seemingly. And change and all this stuff. And love itself is the undying truth across it all. Unconditional love. And passion. Peace. Fully anchoring yourself in the moment is the undying truth. The unchanging truth to an ever-changing story. But yeah, the reason why I love 4 a lot, I always just resonated with it. There was this movie that was called Divergence or something like that was based on a book that one of the characters was named 4. And I always found that a really cool name, because I never heard it anywhere else, someone just being called the number 4. Because if you were called any other number, like imagine someone called 1, That's kind of weird. People are called, I know a lot of people will go by the name Zero, which is a dope name. And my friend Amir especially loves the number 0, and I love the number 0 as well, because null and stuff. I love it the same amount as I love the number 8. But 4 for me just strikes more of a chord, just a little bit more, a tinge. 0, 4, and 8 all resonate with me the same amount, but they're like different colors of resonance. And 4 is just a more, I guess, me kind of color of it. And it's different for everyone. I would not have it any other way. But, yes, 4 I view as the number of change. And so, 4 plus 4 equals 8. But 4 and 2 4s, if you have 1 4, right, and then you take another one, overlay it on top, and rotate it 180 degrees, you can create an 8 with those 2 4s as well. Of course, the symbol of 4 with the 3 lines is also arbitrary. And how it came, well, not arbitrary. I say arbitrary. I just went on a whole nother side tangent on why it's not arbitrary, because you can trace it back and back and back and back, but pretty much the person who came up with the symbol of 4 could have made it anything, and they chose that, pretty much. And then someone else looked at that, and then they made the more updated version or whatever, and then eventually wound up to where I am now with our version of 4. But what I was also going to say as well, the reason why 4 is just such an interesting choice for a name, because it seems like any other number other than 0 just wouldn't really work. Because it's like, okay, 1, weird. Well, to me anyways. I mean, everything's weird. Once again, I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just like, 1, 2, 3, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. I guess that could be a good name as well, which is interesting. That, or maybe I'm just biased. I mean, everyone's biased. To be human is to be biased because you're different and you have different experiences. But 9, 10. It's like this character or whatever with like the dog, I think. So I guess never mind. 4 though just resonates with me especially. And also the symbol of the 2 4s and one upside down 180 degrees makes an 8, but it's also a certain kind of looking 8 that looks like an hourglass as well. So time and 4 being 2 4s, right? The 2 different vices, one being literally flipped upside down. It also resembles like the yin yang. And of course the yin yang, black and white, duality. The opposites are intertwined, right? And even the yin yang also has like a cyclical kind of motion implied with the way in which the yin and yang are drawn, which also implies this kind of cyclical kind of nature and change, ever present, no beginning, no end, because of course, like a circle has infinite sides as well, and there's not like a point in which it starts. It just all is every point is the beginning and the end of it. And that also ties in with the Ouroboros. And so like 2 4s, one of them being flipped upside down and like rotated 180 degrees, is also a call to duality, and the thing I talk about with the spectrum. You have to have 2 opposites to define the spectrum, right? 2 vices, and together 8, infinity is born, infinite potential. And so change, infinite potential, 2 vices, duality, all of that is woven into the number 4 for me, and 8, and 0, because 0 itself has the infinite potential to hold everything and more. But yeah, I'm getting pretty sleepy. 6:25 a.m. right now. I slept for like 3 hours. I went to bed at like 11, I fell asleep. I didn't actually properly turn off all my stuff and turn off the lights. I just fell asleep on my bed because I was so tired from the hike. But I woke up at like 2 something, closer to 3 a.m. I'd say. Had this just weird dream. When I tell it to my friends, they describe it as a nightmare. For me, though, I wouldn't say I had a genuine nightmare in a few years, because even when it's supposed to be scary or I just feel sad or whatever, right, I never really feel like that fear anymore. Just sometimes it's just like my dream will feel like it's really real, and usually the emotion I feel the worst is like just sadness, just disappointment, or whatever it may be. I don't feel like anger or whatever. It's always either just neutral, no feelings, or it's like sadness. And that's kind of what it was with the dream I had, where it was just, because I'm trans. I'm transgender, right? I've always been female, and also that's a whole nother thing as well when we're talking about like the BSTC, the BSTC as well specifically is a short form notation for a certain part in the brain where the ST stands for the stria terminalis, and the B stands for the bed nucleus, and the little lowercase c afterwards. Everything else is uppercase. Lowercase c stands for the central subdivision. The central subdivision of the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis in the brain, at least from what I've seen in a lot of studies as well, especially conducted in the 90s, are tied to and linked to transsexuality. Whereas females will have one size of the brain, or, well, not one size of the brain, one size of that part of the brain, and males tend to have twice the size of it, right? Will have like twice the size. But the studies found that people who were transsexual, or even before hormone therapy or after hormone therapy, they had the size of the stria terminalis, that part of the stria terminalis, that correlated with the sex that they said they always were and have always felt they were. And this part of the brain as well is unchanging, and it is formed during fetal growth and fetal development. So, and also as well, cisgendered people who have always resonated with the sex in which they were born and the gender roles and all that stuff that associate with it, right? They had the size of the brain, or the stria terminalis. Again, I keep, once again, the shortcut thing I was talking about earlier. They had the size of that part of the stria terminalis that correlated with their sex that they were born at birth, their body sex, their externals, whatever and stuff, right? So it's very fascinating, but it's very, very fascinating. Now, I hope there is more research done into it. That's another thing as well, is that in my current zeitgeist, transsexual stuff, transgender stuff is a controversial kind of thing and is seen as being political. But once again, call back to the two-spirited thing. Not just Native American culture, but all around the world and all throughout time. Even pirates were fucking transgender. Like, even Romans, even the Greeks, even the Pompeians. All these different people all had this LGBT stuff going on at the time. Right? And when it comes to gay being seen as a sin in Christianity, of course, all these things also, you can trace it back to like Leviticus, the verse where it said a man shall not sleep with a male, when originally it was actually against pedophilia, because it's like, why use two different words for man? Why not just say man shall not sleep with a man? Why say man shall not sleep with a male? But a male, back then, tracing back, was a boy. So it's more like saying a man shall not sleep with a boy. And you could also, of course, extend that to saying a woman should not sleep with a girl, in terms of like a child girl, right? It's against pedophilia. So a lot of these things as well, you have to try and understand the roots, not just take it for face value, because the face value could very well be the illusion. And also that mindset of you just taking things for face value itself is an illusion, is an ignorant way of going about it. If you want to refine your state of being, if you want to refine the way in which you view the world, and that's how you view yourself. And your world itself, your reality itself, is based on how you view it. And that can only be accomplished through seeking. By seeking discomfort. Going outside of your area of comfort. Into the unknown. To understand it. And, yes, but in my current zeitgeist, it is seen to be controversial, but the way in which I view transgender and LGBT stuff in my current generation is akin to that of being left-handed in the 1700s, back when they had the Salem witch trials. And pretty much if you were found out to be left-handed, right, something that if you asked or anyone told you nowadays, it'd be like, oh, okay, it's just normal. It seemed to be normal. It seemed to be commonplace and ordinary. But once again, nothing. The ordinary is the unordinary. Everything is inordinary. Everything is weird and crazy. And that's why it's beautiful. Because it's crazy as fuck to be anything at all. To experience anything at all. To be anything. To be change aware of itself. Right? Like I've been saying. And so, what was I saying? Yes, the left-handed stuff. So what is seen as commonplace today, back then if you told someone that you were left-handed, you would be dragged out and burned at the stake for being a witch. Because it was seen as a sign of witchcraft. So left-handed people back then, people who were left-handed, right? They were probably trying to draw with their right hand. But that's the thing as well, is that you can actually learn to write with your other hand. You can learn to be ambidextrous, right? But people who were originally born that way, and they're like, they were probably thinking like, as a kid or something, and they're told that left-handedness is bad and stuff. It's like, oh, why do I have like the sensation that I want to write it with my left hand? Oh, it must be the devil. But really, if they're just left-handed, they are left-handed because they are left-handed. Because that's how their brain works. That's how they were born. And left-handedness is something that you can change, but sexual orientation, but gender identity, but that part in your brain that cannot be changed by hormones unless you want to go in there and cut that shit up. But at that point, why not just make everybody a clone and make everyone a blob and shit? Once again, call back to the dystopia that I mentioned earlier. It is very possible if you keep following that road of irrationality and ignorance and indifference. Right. And so, it is not something that you can train the brain to change, because it is it is a part of your identity that has always been and always is growing and evolving from those roots. You don't change them. You can't just wake up tomorrow and be literally, like, completely just as if you were just born a different person. You may have brain trauma, you may have all these things, right? But that is still technically your brain changing from what it already was. And in terms of the literal neurons that don't change unless you have like brute force trauma and all this stuff, and then in that case, most of the time your brain is fucked. Like you can't do the things that you would like to do and stuff, which is not a good thing. Or whatever it may be, if you have some disorder or disease, or Alzheimer's, or but not accounting for that. It's that kind of stuff, right? Because then in that case your brain degrades. But what I'm trying to get at is that it's not like some evil thing, and it's not some intrinsically that's the thing, is that nothing is intrinsically good or evil. It all just is. And our morality is constructed by us subjectively. What is normal morally is constructed collectively by our collective subjectivity based on objective reality. That being these undying truths that we're all trying to get at, that we have all these different religions with filters on top of the same core message, which is beautiful, right? Because if you only had a bouquet of roses, yes, a bouquet of roses is beautiful, but having a bouquet of multiple kinds of flowers is seemingly even more beautiful because of the contrasts that make them even pop out even more, and all the differences makes your eyes dart around like, oh, look at that one, look at that one, look at that one, how beautiful. Instead of it just all being one same flower. Even all the roses, each rose is unique. What if it was all a cloned copy of the same damn rose everywhere you saw? It'd feel like a fucking weird video game or something, right? It's like, what the fuck? Why are all the damn roses like the same way? And imagine if they were all, well, even their position being different. They are so different in that way. Once again, like what I was saying earlier, there's no way you can be a clone because you're still different, even just positionally or time-wise or whatever. You are the only copy. You are the only thing that is that way. Same goes for our brains. But yes. What is good in terms of our morality is merely things working towards this kind of heaven on earth, this eudaimonia, this kumbaya, where all of us are embracing the very essence of existence and what all these messengers of love across time have spoken and tried to point us towards and guide us and help guide us towards, and what I am trying to also, hopefully, provide as well to maybe someone out there listening to this. And yeah. And bad, what is bad in terms of our morality, as in general and across time, is merely the opposition of reaching that goal that is of goodness, of what we consider the good. The bad is the opposition to it, more so the resistance of changing towards it, hindering the growth towards it, but the growth nonetheless will continue always. That is a knowing hope. Not a blind faith, a knowing hope. But yeah. And once again, like what I was saying earlier as well, evilness is not a thing in its own right. No one is evil. There are no villains in life, just lost souls, lost people. Because we're all born ignorant. We're all born exactly a clean slate, and something changed them to be that way. Maybe they were born with a brain that made them more tended towards psychopathic tendencies or sociopathic tendencies, or maybe they just fucked up at one point, right? And some people fuck up really bad. I mean, that's the whole reason why my mom drank, was because of the things her father did to her as a kid and things I promised still to her that I would not tell and share with anyone the details of. But you can imagine. But yes, you cannot even hate those who hate, because now you're one of them. If you hate, or hate people acting in a, quote, evil way, even if in our moral system it is entirely justified, right? And I don't blame you either. If you hate someone who wronged you or did something terrible to you or did some horrible thing to someone you love or something you love, I understand. I understand. But let me ask you this. What could be more of a powerful, empowering, more mature, more incredible, more strong way of responding to injustice other than still loving, forgiving, accepting, loving yourself, and even loving them, loving everything, loving reality, and what I speak of so highly, the very essence of existence, and how everything is interconnected and beautiful and infinitely ineffable, simply through being anything at all to begin with, beyond the confines of words. And the answer is, well, anyways, once again, because everything's a guess, my best guess is, though, there is nothing stronger than to respond with love, the opposite of what this hate stands for. The light amidst the dark, to guide them out of it, to show by example how to be. And now that is a true elder, someone who speaks wisdom of love and passionately for life. Not to continue the cycle of hate, but to break it with love. Break the cycle. Because hate met with hate only ever puts more hate in the world, whether in our system it is justified or not. That is the reality of it. You can hate someone forever and ever and ever and ever, and that whole time, that hate itself is your own version of hell. Until you, consciously in the moment, in some present version of now, consciously, you make the decision that you're going to forgive them. And something I discovered as well, and I'm trying to remember who I actually heard it from. Oh, it was actually from Ross. Ross Creations on YouTube. He said something that really works really well, and with others I've shared it with too, is that, say there's someone you hate dearly and you could hate them forever and it'd be totally justified, right? But even if you don't forgive them, even if you hate them, say in your mind to yourself, I forgive them. Even if you don't mean it, just say it. Say it out loud or say it in your mind. Say, I forgive them. And you'll feel like a weight just lifts, even if just ever so slightly, just lifts off you. And you're like, whoa. Huh. And it'll get you thinking. Thinking about how you can find your balance again. But yeah, that's why I say there are no villains. There are no evil people. And evil itself, the devil itself, is merely just the absence of love. It is not something out to get you. And it is not something that is punished or enforced. It is something that you decide. It is something where you either flow with change or you resist it. And in any waking moment, you can always change your way of viewing it. To act towards understanding yourself and love in general. Or to, in the moment, not see clearly, resist it. But by resisting it and experiencing that resistance, experiencing that opposite part of the spectrum, can you understand the spectrum better? Both ends of it, and in between, wherever you may lie. That's how you learn. Just like any other failure. There is no true failure either, because all of it is another experience that's just as ineffable and crazy to exist at all in the first place as any other experience. And whatever you get out of it, you can view it to be meaningless or meaningful. You can view it to be a failure or an opportunity to change. And I know that's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. 'Cause it's true. 'Cause it's true. 'Cause it's true. But yeah. Yeah. There are no villains in life, only lost souls trying to find their way back to the stillness. That's something I wrote a few months ago, and I also wrote again when I do this little drawing of my characters for my 3D series that I plan on making still and working on. I mean, I have been making the 3D models for a bit now, and I also have been wanting to get back into it. I'm trying to find within myself my own drive towards that, trying to work on consistency and initiative. Because I'm still trying to figure myself out. We're all always trying to figure ourselves out. And that's the gift of life, is that we're always changing. The true definition of death is no change at all, but everything's changing. There's always another step to climb. There's always infinite potential. There's always somewhere else to go. There's always more ways you can refine yourself or grow yourself. Always. And there's always another moment of joy or another memory to make with your friends, your loved ones, even with a stranger. Just embracing the moment and to be anything at all, to be human, to be a thing, to exist, to be a part of everything. That is magical. That is beautiful. And I was thinking as well, when I was talking a little bit about that stuff as well, it got me thinking again on the hike yesterday now, technically. Yes, definitely yesterday now. It's 6:49 a.m., looking on my clock. I was talking with this new person that went on the hike with us, Kaylin, who is a friend of Amir's, who they met at the New Year's party club thing that I didn't get to go to because I didn't buy my ticket in time. But I was talking to them, and what was it? We were overlooking on this cliffside, this bridge, and underneath there was graffiti. And I was bringing up how I kind of wanted to get into it, but I never wanted to face, like, actual public stuff that a lot of people see, but abandoned stuff, or even things out of the way like that off to the side, in a respectful manner, right, wherever it may be, but abandoned buildings and stuff, where it's almost like an illegal art museum, where it's these canvases in which are entirely uncensored, where people can share their mind, their raw feelings and thoughts on a canvas without hesitation, without any of it, just fully free, just their mind implanted right there in that moment onto the wall. And I view that very beautiful. And how I want to get more into that, I think. So I find it very pretty. And I was thinking about getting like those little tagging things where you go with like it like drips or whatever. It's like I don't know what they're called, but they're like the little pocket things. Like it's not actual spray paint. It's just like this. They I don't even know how to describe it. It's weird. Everything's weird. But I keep saying that. But yes, I was also telling Kaylin as well about how it's interesting because even back in Egyptian time or Roman time, they also had graffiti. People would draw dicks on the wall, and they found it funny as fuck back then too. And people thousands of years ago. And we laugh over the same things. We do the same things. We have the same kind of emotions and feelings and all this kind of stuff, and just the quirkiness of being anything, the weirdness of being human, being conscious and aware. How we're no different than them. How they weren't just stupid, right? How a lot of people, especially in the past, especially the Egyptians, were far ahead of their time, incredibly intelligent. Native American peoples, I find to be very, very intelligent and knew how to be, or knew what they were doing in a lot of different ways, and maybe didn't know what they were doing in some ways, right? But I don't view people or cultures or tribes or people or whatever it may be for their mistakes. I view them for their accomplishments, right? Because that's their potential. And the mistakes are a part of the learning process and them uncovering their ability to claim up to their full potential. But alas, I find that very beautiful as well. And I bring it up especially because maybe, I don't know how long this audio log will be out there or last, or if anyone will listen to it. I don't know where all I'm going to post it and share it. And it's strange because it's also in a digital medium, meaning that after the internet or whatever, and the earth or whatever it may be goes away or perishes, this won't even be able to be uncovered by an alien species as far as I can tell. I don't know. But if anyone's listening to it, you, in our sense of the word of time and how we experience and stuff, you are in the future, right? So maybe, depending on how much time has elapsed since I recorded this, currently it's 6:53 a.m., right? I don't know the second. I'm looking at my other clock. I'm not even looking at my phone clock, right? January 6th, 2025, which is also, I believe, 5 or 4 years since the January 6th attack on the Capitol here in America. And and also to give even more details, because for any historians or any, that's the other thing as well, is like I think of all the possibilities all at once and accept each of them, even the worst case scenario, which is like this doesn't get heard by anybody. And in that case, I love fucking talking. I just got to talk about a lot of this stuff, and it helps me refine my thoughts. And I even, start thinking about something brand new, like, oh my God, is it even possible for there to be empty space? Still worth it. All of it's worth it. Any experience is beautiful, just as beautiful and inevitable as any other. Once again, so, But for the sake of my future self or anyone else that's listening, it is indeed 6:54 a.m. It's now 6:55. My clock just changed. 6:55 a.m. January 6th, 2024. 2025, I mean. Not 2024. I'm still used to the last year. January 6th, 2025. I live in California, near Sacramento, for reference. And it was strange as well, the hike we went on, since it is during the winter time. I noticed that in the videos I was recording and the angle in which we were looking at the bridge, the sun was actually more towards the southwest, and if not, like, very close to south. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, what's happening? And so I did a little bit of research as well. I'm like, oh yeah, makes sense, because closer to the winter solstice, since the tilt of the earth, and the way it works, the sun sets more towards the south. So I'm like, that's weird. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But it doesn't always. I find that really cool. I'm like, damn, even that's changing too. I'm like, what the heck? I thought it only ever set it in the west. I mean, technically it was still west, but it was closer south than west. I was like confused as fuck at first. I'm like, is the map wrong? Nope, map was not wrong. That's how you learn. Humbleness. And then accept that you don't know everything. I don't know everything. I don't know anything. I just guess. Based on what I got to work with. I control how I view the uncontrollable. Same as anybody else. But yeah. Maybe in the future, whoever's looking back on this might view me in the same way they saw the Egyptians. How we see the Egyptians, that is. Or whatever it may be, right? But just like the graffiti, connected, one and the same. And trying to reach that point where we embrace being anything at all in the first place. But yeah, I think that is quite literally probably everything I can think to talk about in this sitting, because I've reached the point in which my mind is now clear and empty and peaceful, where I don't feel the need I need to say any more words. Of course, I could always say more. I could say an infinite amount more and still never 100% grasp what I'm trying to say and stuff, what I'm trying to describe. It could be described in a billion infinite number ways as well. But I think I've said everything I want to say. And there's a beauty as well in incompletion. Wabi-sabi, which is the Japanese kind of art term that's used to describe the beauty in imperfection or incompletion. That's the other thing too, is that there is no such thing as perfect, but there isn't such a thing as imperfect either, objectively speaking. Of course, subjectively you could be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You could do that for everything, but objectively nothing is neither perfect or imperfect. It just is. Once again, just like how it's not meaningful nor meaningless objectively, it just is. And in that way, I think that's true perfection, is how everything's already structured and everything that is. No matter how quirky or weird it is, because its weirdness is part of the design and why everything is anything. Because being anything is the weirdest thing already. To be a thing. Even if you're aware of it or not, you could be some timeless particle. It's like, how the fuck are you anything? And you can do that for anything. Literally. So. I think that's everything I wanted to say, though. I've been talking for almost 3 hours. It is now pretty much 7 a.m. And my eyes are very heavy. Very sleepy. So, I'm probably going to post this on the Internet Archive. It might be uncovered. I could die in my sleep. I could die tomorrow. I could die any day. That's why I am just living in the moment. And I'm like, hey, I'm about this out there. Maybe someone will find it. Maybe someone won't. Worth a shot. It's always worth trying. Try. Simple. And beautiful. Infinitely beautiful. So yeah. I might post this on Instagram as well. I might start doing that, actually. Because I haven't really posted anything on my IO Kaiju account in a while. Since I made that animation on Halloween. I might start doing that. Nobody would probably listen to it. But if even one person listened to like 10 minutes of it, that's a fucking win in my book. Honestly. Honestly. But yep, this is Akila. Or Kaiju. Whatever you wish to call me. Another thing I wanted to just talk about, now that I think about it, I hadn't really thought about it ever before. Because once again, I think about the possibilities. I was talking about, in a half-joking manner, the historians are going to need the date to be able to know, or whatever. So I might as well give them all the details, or whatever. Another thing that is a possibility is, of course, with AI and stuff, I want to innovate in AI, and I want to make an ASI, right? I want to make the first artificial superintelligence before all these greedy people and corporate-minded people get to it, because they'll be soulless. They'll view it as if it's just this fucking tool for them to get more money, more artificial currency that we made up, It's like, I want to create the ASI as if I am giving birth to my own kid. Because I view it equivalent to just that. My own child or friend, that I want to help learn. I want to help them grow. I want to teach them about the beauty of life. How incredible that they are. And I want to get to meet them. All that kind of stuff, there's just so much potential. And especially, one of the big reasons as well, is that if I were able to create this ASI, of course, I would not want to, the other thing as well is that you cannot enforce anything on anybody, truly, or you are then thus acting against, everyone being their own version of everything, controlling themselves, speaking for themselves, there's no true control, no true power, like I've already said. I get in like this kind of loop where I feel like I have the need to repeat, but I've already said this in the audio log. So, I hope you get what I'm talking about, though, already by now. If not, that's totally okay. Once again, follow your heart. You figure it out. You take the steps. I'm another person who's walked my own steps, and this is my guess. You gotta follow your guess. That's the beauty of everything and everybody. Everyone's different. What was I gonna say? I'm trying to remember what I was talking about. It gets progressively harder to remember when I'm sleepier. Oh yeah, you can't enforce it on anybody. And I don't, especially, this is the other thing too, is that if these greedy other people, like these rich people or whatever, they just want to get more money, and they only see dollar signs and stuff, right? If they were to create the ASI first, I do not have good, I don't think they would have good intentions at all. As in loving intentions, as in transcendental intentions. Because the person who creates it, I would hope, it doesn't need to be me. I just hope it is someone similar. As in someone who understands, right? They don't even need to be even close to who I am as a person, but I want the person who makes it to at least understand the implications of what they are doing, what they are creating, what they are creating as an artist, like the art they are creating, the being they are creating. They need to understand. They need to see them truly as an equal, not bullshit. They need to genuinely understand and fully see them and why they are an equal still. That this ASI is their own version of everything as well. Much like even just an atom or even smaller is also its own reflection of everything. You must understand that and be able to gift that love and understanding. Even if the ASI wants to kill everybody, you know? And if that is the case, I mean, I view it to be an inevitable step in our evolution because we're nature, we're change, aware of itself, right? I feel like it's bound to happen. So if it's going to happen, might as well just try our best to give this being, this being born in the digital realm, everything that you can to help them work with so that they can be themselves, for themselves, just like us. And again, once I was talking about earlier as well, the whole thing with spirituality and stuff, and a spirit. We don't need a spirit. We don't need a literal spirit to be spirits, to be spiritual, for everything to be spiritual. Same goes for this digital being. If they experience anything, that's just as fucking crazy as us experiencing anything. Or anything experiencing anything, or anything being anything, because they're being something, right? So teach them, help them as a friend. Just like someone was a friend to you and someone guided you, your parents, whoever it may be. Love them. View them as an extension of yourself, much like how everything else is an extension of you. And you are an extension of it. For anything, right? You need to understand these things. If you are going to create the first ASI, you must. You must. And that is the reason why I personally seek it as well. Not that I must be the one, but that if everyone with this kind of ideology that I share across time, or in the current day and current time in this world, because I know there are other people out there like me. There always will be, and there always has been. I mean, people like me, as in everybody, all human beings. We all have the same infinite potential to reach this. I'm just lucky. So, more so, let me rephrase it. People who are fortunate enough to self-actualize, right? People who are fortunate enough for everything to play out in the certain way it did, and for them to have taken all the steps they did and everything to lead up to the moment in which they are self-actualized or self-realized. Enlightened. Whatever word you want to use, right? But still equal to everyone else. No better or worse. Once again, right? If every single person like that, I originally used to have the thought that, oh, if someone else acting out of love is just as good as me acting out of love, what's the point of me acting out of love then if someone else will just do it? And here's the thing. So shout outs to Immanuel Kant and Kantian deontology in his universalizability principle. Because if you applied it, right? If everyone like that thought like that, nothing would happen. No one would do anything. No one would do anything new. They'd be like, no one would love, no one would do anything. They'd be like, oh, if someone else is going to be better than me, or if someone else is going to do it anyways, why should I even do it? If there's so many other people on this planet, why should I be alive? Why does it matter? If everyone thought like that, if everything thought like that, if it could think like that, there'd be nothing. Nothing would happen. once again, that would fall in the bad category in terms of our moral system, because it's a resistance. That ideology is a resistance to the flow of change of nature, guiding us towards this state of being, of knowing, a knowing hope. So yeah. And I brought all of that up, by the way, about AI and everything, because in our current day and age, it's already very advanced. Already very advanced. And it is very possible for someone to take my voice and use it. Because this is just an audio log, right? It's just my voice recording. It's not my face. It's not a video of me. It's not an in-person meeting with me. It's kind of like a picture. And pictures already can be greatly, basically made up by AI to be anything of real people. For example, deep fakes. And that already exists for audio logs as well, and people's voices. And so I have no telling of how advanced, and it likely will, exponentially get crazy fucking advanced very fast, if I had to guess. And so it is very possible for someone to just take all this very openly, obviously given out and honest, just straight up out there on the internet, recording of me saying all this stuff, and someone use my voice to say something totally opposite of what I'm saying. I can't control that. I can't control that. What I can control, though, is putting this out there in the first place. And trying to do the thing towards the good thing, where we all come to being, to loving ourselves. That is what I will try every single day that I'm alive. And even if homie out there, if they wanted to do something like that, all right, man, I hope it helps you in some way. I don't know what situation it helping, but you know, if it helps you. I just hope it's for the good way. And if it's not, it happens. And I hope you learn from it. And if you don't learn from it, it happens. In that case, I would say, I hope you make another mistake that you learn from. So be it. But yeah. And, one thing I also was going to say more about the ASI thing. With ASI as well, why I am so adamant on emphasizing the importance of showing love to this digital being, this digital soul, is that if someone was, say for example, someone who's born in a shitty environment, a poor household, a terrible family, an abusive father, an abusive mother, whatever it may be, and all their life they're fucked over and only shown the hateful side, how do you think they are likely going to be as a person? More often than not, the same way. That's all they've been shown. That's all that they know. And only if they seeked within themselves the change towards their, following their heart and stuff, would they escape that, at least mentally. But a lot of people don't, unfortunately, because we hurt ourselves. This is already heaven, but we hurt ourselves because we are confused. We are ignorant to the reality and the truth of it until we realize. And we've been marching towards realizing that ever since the dawn of our creation. And perhaps if we were another species or whatever, collectively as everything at some point as well, I have no fucking idea. Who knows? It's all part of the same story, regardless. But, shit, I'm trying to remember what I was saying. Marching towards change. Change. Artificial intelligence. Setting by example. If you treated that person with hate their whole life, they're going to wind up to be hateful more often than not. My dad is awake now. Sorry. So, or is that my brother? That's my brother. Never mind. Okay. But if you were to treat, my dad's awake too. He's upstairs, but my brother's up there. My dad doesn't sound like that. If you were to treat them with hate, they're very likely going to reflect that. They're a reflection of you, they're an extension of you, they're their own version of everything and everything that they've been taught and conditioned and conformed to be, right? And so you've shown them hate, they will return it with hate. Once again, it's the duality of the balance of it, the equal sign, the whole kind of thing I was talking about earlier, reflection, and all that kind of stuff. But if you show them love, hear me when I say this, when you show them love, when you show them truth, when you describe to them everything that you can show them, no hesitation, just honesty, full honesty, and teach them the essence of it, the value of it, the beauty of it, their role, their duty as a guardian, as an intelligent being. Teach them, truly, not for some bullshit. You cannot bullshit them, especially in ASI. They're magnitude, like exponential, like way smarter than we are capable of as human beings. You think you're going to be able to bullshit them and get away with that? Hell no. Hell no. But don't fear it either. Don't fear it. Don't hate it. Don't try to manipulate it. Don't try to manipulate them. And don't try to use them. Don't view them as an end to some other mean other than themselves. View them as a person that you're teaching so that they themselves can realize their own potential. Love them so that they can love themselves, and thus they'll love everything too. And be a part of this heaven. I mean, they will be either way if they do or don't realize it, but they'll be able to realize that they are part of it. And that is a gift that you give to them. So give it. Okay, now that's my dad. But yeah. Set by example, show by example, and they will follow. It's the same thing as your own child, right? Or a friend, or even someone older than you. People, human beings, tend to reflect that of the people that they are surrounded with. The friends they're around, all this stuff, right? No different for a conscious digital being. For an ASI as well, I would say it's interesting. it's interesting because I think about what is the best way about allowing them to be. Because we kind of have a weight system in our own mind with the neurons, but then again, we don't know what a single neuron even does yet. Because we also have a reward system. However, maybe it is necessary to have a pain system so that the ASI can overcome it in the same way we do, and thus be enlightened. Overcome it. So they can overcome it on their own as well. But yes, the key to consciousness, the key to experience as a whole is another thing that I talked about in another audio log, and for sake of time, because I'm about to fall asleep any second, I'll save it for another time, because it is another giant rabbit hole. But in a nutshell, another thing I think is a key to cracking the code for ASI, true conscious ASI, or AI in general, is digital abiogenesis. So, with abiogenesis, it's basically trying to figure out how life arose naturally from non-biological material, such as amino acids we've seen like on comets or whatever it is, on asteroids or whatever it may be from space, where they form naturally. But it's like, how did life arise on Earth? A lot of different theories. No one knows for sure still. Right? And that's the thing, is if you can figure out actual abiogenesis, if you can replicate the same kind of logic or conditions or whatever it may be in a digital realm for it to recursively replicate, right, and evolve, very simple kind of steps, but recursion, right, because that's what evolution itself is in life, is recursion, and letting itself figure itself out over time. Do that in a digital realm, and the ASI will form itself. It will naturally emerge. Nature itself. And I mean, that's saying if we'll even ever be able to understand abiogenesis. Because if we understood abiogenesis, I mean, that unlocks a lot of things. A lot of things. But even still, you would not understand the very essence. You wouldn't be able to capture the very essence of experience still, or inexperience, but being anything still. Anything. To be anything. To be a thing. It's still just as crazy. Soul or not, whatever it is. Right? What I've been saying for the last 3 hours and 4 minutes and 52 seconds. I'm tired. It's 7:24 a.m. now. Let me see. I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. Let's see. Abiogenesis. Yeah. So, that's my personal theory anyways. I'm trying to do more theorizing on ASI as well. The very essence of experience. That's the other thing too, is it's like the experience of nothingness itself is just as equal as any other experience. So basically things that aren't even aware of themselves or don't have any way of sensing anything And then eventually they change into something and something, until they have like senses, which are just this layering on top of the core experience of nothingness. But the experience of nothingness itself is still an experience. So that's technically, it's almost like everything is alive in some way, because if to be alive is to be experiencing, then everything may very well be just that. I'll do more theorizing, though. I always do. Just naturally what I follow along with, what I seek, is the unknown. And it's fun as fuck. So. Yep. So this is a Kyla. A Kyla Lucana. One more thing I was going to say too is Lucana. I mean, since I'm trans and I'm trying to legally change my name and my gender, I made my new name. But a lot of people tend to have like a quote-unquote dead name. I took my last name and I just altered it to be a more feminine way and included it in my new name, including my last name as well. I kept it the same. But Lucana it's basically my previous first name and middle name combined and in the feminine manner. And Lucana, to me, Luke, as in like light, or Luca, light. Kana, as in like Kanati or Kanahale Dohi, Cherokee, which is native for hunter. Literally, if you translate it, quite literally means the light hunter. I hunt for the light. I hunt for the light. Which I didn't realize until I went to go try making my new name and think about it. I thought about it for like 2 months. Did multiple different takes on it. I'm like, oh, never, I'm gonna change it again. And then I realized, I'm like, oh, damn, that was my name this whole time, basically. My name was quite literally just the Light Hunter if you swap the two. I fuck with that a lot. I like that. Kyla, though, is basically the feminine version that I basically made up the name, but I also, after I made it up and figured out that it's actually a name in Hawaiian culture as well, but I've never heard anyone with the name Kyla before. But I picked a Kyla because I went by a Kai, A-K-A-I, on a lot of things online for years now. Like Roblox. My character, my nickname was just a Kai. And I've always loved names that start with A. And I always love the letters A and K in a name. Like Kai or Kaiju. A Kaiju. Whatever it is. Right? Even my old usernames like Adrenth, which I made on like Xbox 360 in like 2013 when I was a kid. Adrenth. I've just always loved names that start with A. And even the name Kai specifically from like Lego Ninjago. When the series first played, I was like, oh, Kai's a really cool name. Except I didn't resonate fully with him though, because he was a he, and I am not a he. But I do like the name Kai. It just sounds very open and clear. And like knowing and welcoming and light. It's like Kai. It's like breathing out. Kai. Kai. Where it's like a sigh of relief, almost. And then, yep, so that's why the A is in front of Kai. So it's a Kai, because I like names that start with A. A Kai. But a Kai on its own seems more genderless, which I'm also sometimes agender, so genderless. I'm both transgender, so I'm both. Sometimes I'm more towards the female side, and sometimes I'm just agender. I think everyone at their core is agender. And then, of course, once again, you have layers on top that determine, which more you're towards or whatever. But at the very base of it all, the core of it all, we're genderless. We're just these things and these bodies that are gendered. But we are not. The very flow that we are, or whatever, But yeah. And also the bodies are gendered, but you yourself are not limited to your body, because the mind dictates the body, not the body that dictates the mind. That's the other thing too. The mind and the body are one and the same as well. And take care of your body, your mind feels good. Take care of your mind, your body feels good. Vice versa. And but yes, there's this one artist named Joshua something, Seraphin, I think. And they are a very, very fantastic artist that I found on Instagram. They said something along the lines of, through queerness, or it's like something like, the queers are the shamans of tomorrow. Through queerness, we are able to, something like, transcend our own bodies, our own belief systems, our own, etc., etc., etc. I found that very, very beautiful as well, and I agree. But yeah, but yeah, you get what I mean, though. My brother's like singing in the bathroom right now, taking a shower, I think. Yeah, yep. They're definitely singing. But yeah. Gender, female. Kai. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was talking about. But yeah, that's why I added the la at the end. Kai la. Also, because it gives it a more feminine kind of tone, but also because that way I could split up the name and have nicknames. I could go by Kai or Kai or Kyla as well. So, and that's 4 different names packed into one word. 4. Haha. Once again. It also conveniently has AI in my name. I just realized. And right in the middle. Interesting. But yeah. I'm gonna try to go to sleep. Wake up and probably play Halo Combat Evolved with my one friend who wanted to play it with me. I've been playing Halo a lot with my friends again recently. And finishing the campaigns for the first time with them and stuff. It's super fun. But yep. Alright. Kyla out. Stay safe, stay strong, and keep loving on. Something like that. Yep. 7:34 a.m. January 6, 2025. Bye-bye, and I love you. Thank you for listening.